everyone, my name is Birdie and I am your friendly neighborhood forest witch. And first, I'd like to wish a happy Hispanic Heritage Month to all the brujas out there. And as far as this video, I'd like to start a new series called Who's That Witch? By showcasing witches of different ethnicities, cultures, backgrounds, etc. So this video is not only about the famous shaman María, Sabina, Magdalena, García, but it's also a book review on a Spanish book called Brujas, which also translates to witches in English. And this is by Brenda Lozano, I believe it's pronounced, and it's translated from the Spanish version to English by Heather Cleary. And these two things are relevant because even though Lozano doesn't name María in her novel, Cleary states in her translator's note that Lozano drew inspiration from the life of María. So let's first delve into María's story and who she was. She was born in southern Mexico on July 22nd, 1894, which is the last day of Cancer season. Her parents were both peasants, so unfortunately she grew up in extreme poverty, and her father ended up passing away from an illness when María was just 3 years old. Now, her grandfather and her great-grandfather on her father's side were both shamans, and they were skilled in using mushrooms to communicate with God according to their beliefs. Then, when María was older, she became a Maztec shaman as well. She was known to perform sacred mushroom healing ceremonies called veladas, which were based on the use of psilocybin mushrooms, which is a sacred mushroom important to the Maztecs. Then, in 1955, an American by the name of R. Gordon Wasson and his wife were the first outsiders to take part in one of María's ceremonies. However, I'm not going to go into detail about this because they took advantage of her and used her in the worst kind of way. But it is public knowledge and can be found on Google, so if you want to look into that, you can go ahead and do that. Then, because of this terrible couple, numerous Americans started seeking out María and the magic mushrooms as early as 1962. And many celebrities, including Bob Dylan, John Lennon, and Keith Richards, were rumored to have visited the shaman in her village. And as the small village became overrun by these Westerners wanting to experience the mushroom-induced hallucinations, María actually ended up attracting the attention of the Mexican police, who believed she was a drug dealer. And unfortunately, this is only the beginning of the tragedy. This unwanted attention completely altered the social dynamics of the village and also threatened to terminate the Maztec custom. So the villagers blamed María and actually ostracized her from the village. They burnt down her home and murdered her son. And then in addition to that, she was also briefly jailed. And this whole story just completely breaks my heart. Then later, María spoke about regretting having introduced Wasson to the practice. And of course, why wouldn't she? She had been through so much just because of him and his wife. Then, sadly, on November 22nd, 1985, at the age of 91, María died in poverty, suffering from malnutrition. Now, let's delve into the book that was inspired by this beautiful shaman. However, before we delve into this, I do want to give a trigger warning because this book does have some very hard topics, so please take caution. Now, I decided to listen to this novel on audiobook because I wanted the added experience of the story being told by a fluent Spanish speaker. Not only did Cleary translate the book, but she also is the person who reads the audiobook, and her translation is absolutely beautiful. It gives English speakers insight into the nature of language and culture and gender and power, and I just absolutely love it. She states in her translator's note that she purposely leaves Spanish terms in her translation, like bruja, which means witches, of course, and curandera, which means the female form of healer, which in my opinion just adds to the story's cultural significance and beauty. And with the voices of the two main characters in the book, she's able to successfully capture both the standard Spanish and the nuances of the native tongue that each character possesses. And now let's talk about the author and her story. So in her novel, Lozano weaves together two parallel narratives and tells the story of Feliciana, who is an older indigenous healer, and then a young woman named Zoe, who is a journalist. And these two women meet through the murder of Feliciana's cousin and teacher, Paloma. So Zoe travels from Mexico City, which is where she lives, to Royal, Oaxaca, and Zoe has been assigned to write an article about Feliciana, who is actually the fictionalized version of María, which is the shaman that I previously spoke about. And Feliciana's cousin and teacher, Paloma, has just been murdered. Now, Paloma was a trans woman, or a muox, which is another untranslated word referring to a third gender. Now, this third gender is recognized and even celebrated by some indigenous communities in Oaxaca, but the murder was a hate crime, and it was actually committed by a man with who Paloma had spent the night with. So Feliciana tells the story of her life to Zoe, her struggle to become an accepted healer in her community, and the difficult choices faced by her joyful and spirited cousin Paloma. And while telling her story, she actually draws Zoe's out of her as well. And Zoe begins to understand the hidden history of her own experience as a woman, finding her way in a hostile environment shaped by and for men. Unfortunately, both women have sisters who were violated. In Zoe's case, their mother's intuition protected her from even worse harm, and they also both had fathers who died with unfinished business. But Feliciana and Zoe bond over the traumas they share and their love of their sisters and children, their experiences with violence against women, their fears as mothers navigating a dangerous world, and their determination to mark their own path. In my opinion, the author successfully weaves together two parallel narratives that mirror and reflect one another, and offers a generous and nuanced understanding of a world that can be violent and exultant, cruel, but also full of hope. And she uses gender-based violence as a point of connection for Feliciana and Zoe. And she also provides the audience with an intimate look into each of the characters' lives through their stories and their language. And you feel as though Zoe is actually speaking directly to you, and that Feliciana is speaking directly to Zoe. To me, one of the best parts of this book is that you can actually feel that the magic within the text exists within the language. For example, I've picked out 3 of my favorite quotes that are just pure magic in my opinion, and I'd like to share them with you now. I am a shaman, but most call me curandera. This is how I am known. Some call me a bruja, a witch. Yes, there's a difference between being a curandera and being a shaman. A curandera heals with elixirs and herbs. A shaman does this also, but a shaman can heal things that are not of the body. A shaman can heal things of deeper waters. I heal things people have lived in the past, so I heal what they live in the present. And so people say also that I heal their future. I look at you and see that Paloma brought you here, but others bring you also. Others led you here by the hand. Paloma once said to me, she said, Feliciana, love, shaman, curandera, witch, those words are all too small for you, because yours is the language. You are the curandera of the language, and yours too is the book. I see people's futures. I see their futures clear because of how the language is, because sometimes the past and the future roam through the present in the language. But I don't see the future because I look for it. That's not something you look for. There are other people in my town who see the future. Paloma could see it like it walked in front of her, and so people asked her for advice and love. They told her what was happening, so Paloma would tell them their future and affections. This is something a person is born with. There are people who fear us because they don't understand what we do. I am not a witch or a fortune teller or a healer like the others. God knows that. The herbs and the mushrooms give me great powers for reflection because that is the greatest power we have on this earth. Reflection is how we heal ourselves and how we can fix any problem or heartbreak. And so with herbs and with the mushroom children, I look inside the sick one. I see the root of their physical sickness or the suffering buried in their soul, and that is something that sages of medicine can't do. People are afraid of us because they don't know how we do it. But this is something that comes to us from our ancestors. It is as old as the land itself. So I've found that it's hard to come by a fiction novel that actually highlights witchcraft, herbalism, or spirituality in a positive light. If you're part of the witchcraft community, you know firsthand of the hate and the judgments that witches typically receive, not only in real life, but also in literature and film. So I loved that this novel actually highlighted such a beautiful herbal practice. And if you happen to know of any other fiction novels about positive witchcraft, herbalism, or spirituality, please let me know because I would love to read those as well. I'd also like to note, as a mother of a trans child and a proud ally, I absolutely love that the LGBTQIA plus community is represented in this novel. And despite it being a hard topic, I'm also glad Lozano highlighted gender-based violence. Violence against women, trans women, and even trans men is a very real and scary reality that not only my child, but many others have to face on a daily basis. So this was a powerful read that I connected with on so many different levels, and I've rated it a 5 stars. I highly recommend it. If you're interested, I will leave a link to purchase this novel in the description down below. But thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed learning about María Sabina Magdalena García and learning about the book Witches. If you did, definitely give this video a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks, friends. Bye.